Again, welcome everybody, and thanks for being here today. We're excited, and thanks to everyone for being here with us today. Before I discuss this year's FastBridge product release, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on these unprecedented times that we're currently living in. To say that our spring has changed is really an understatement. The impact of this global pandemic has made for some extremely stressful times as schools across the country have had to pivot and change to new models of distance learning that could really potentially last into next school year. Across much of the country, our school buildings have closed. So this is something brand new to all of us here, but that doesn't mean that learning has stopped. There are three primary ways that we've been seeing schools and learning sort of shift this year. First, some of which schools have just completely closed their doors and teachers are no longer teaching students. In many schools, learning is actually still occurring and teachers are engaging with their classes, but the work is ungraded and attendance is optional. In some of these cases, we hear about teachers doing really creative things to get their students who choose to participate engaged in learning. And in typically these settings, educators are reviewing previously taught skills and are working with students in both large and small groups. And then in other cases, some schools, attendance is actually still expected and the work with students is being graded. Some schools are operating on similar schedules that they had when they were in the buildings, and while others have vastly changed their schedules. But in these schools and in these situations, teachers are progressing in their curriculum standards and teaching new skills in some cases. So over this time, where participation has been optional or required, we've reached out to a number of district leaders to find out just how they're doing during these times of such significant change. And there are a lot of common themes that we heard in our discussion with these leaders, which are listed in on the bullet points on this slide. We really wanted to highlight, educators are worried about learning loss and having limited access to spring assessment data. They're worried about the social emotional health of their students during these times. And what this feedback has really been telling us is that educators really need resources to help them learn how to do screening and progress monitoring in a distance learning model. And that formative assessment is important as ever right now. And when teachers can't see students completing their work in the same room as them, having access to data to help determine students' needs is super essential. So today, I'm really excited to be here to talk about this year's product release, but also remind you of some of the tools and resources that are currently available within FastBridge and Illuminate Education to help provide this essential data and insight and access to resources that are needed now and then also as this carries into next school year. And I'll be starting by highlighting how FastBridge can really help with the last bullet point on this slide of addressing the social emotional behavior side of the aspect of this. And if you aren't already, we recommend that using our SAEBRS and my SAEBRS screener this fall would be really key to being able to address that bullet point of how critical socially emotional behavior understanding is when students come back to school after being out for such long time. This screener is great to help you to get a baseline understanding of how students have been impacted during this time from a social emotional perspective and provide you with guidance about whether or not you'll need to develop tier 1, 2, or 3 strategies to deal with these concerns. If you're not familiar with the social emotional behavior verbiage, what it is a combination of social emotional learning and positive behavioral interventions and supports that teach the positive social emotional learning skills while managing and dealing with the poor behaviors and problems that some students might have, and really truly reinforcing that reinforcing the positive behaviors that students have, and really truly giving them that positive reinforcement back. And some of those behaviors are listed here. So like we had mentioned, SAEBRS and SAEBRS would be a good tool to be able to address to see the positive behaviors listed here under the blue bullet or column 1. Here, that self-awareness, the social awareness, their relationship skills, they're still motivated to want to learn. And then really, how can we manage and better the negative behaviors here listed under the column 2 and see less of those? Both SAEBRS and SAEBRS will be able to show you how students are doing in both of these positive and negative behaviors. And this just kind of shows more of a breakdown too of the SAEBRS assessment for, SAEBRS can be used K through 12 to show students who are at risk for academic, social, or emotional behaviors, and broken down into even further subtests under those areas. But it's a great screener that can be used by class, grade, or in school to identify trends that you might need to be able to look at addressing when students come back to school. So we wanted to remind you that SAEBRS is a great screener that we have available to use with any FastBridge subscription, and is available to you at no cost as well, no additional cost. This is always available for you to use, and we would highly recommend when students come back to school this fall that you utilize it. So switching gears from the behavior perspective, now we'll be getting more into our academic reading and behaviors, and what are the upcoming things that we'll be doing differently with our data this upcoming year. So this year, FastBridge will be adding additional tools and resources, making it easier for educators to interpret students' data and to identify students' learning gaps. FastBridge will also provide recommendations backed by university research that will help determine the right instruction and interventions that are needed to address those learning gaps. And like I mentioned earlier, like having all of this data to help determine students' needs will be super essential for this upcoming school year, just due to the nature of how COVID-19 has impacted schools this spring. And ways that we're looking at doing that with our new updates this year are adding and introducing our FastTrack Math assessments. So those of you that are familiar with us and FastBridge, last year we introduced FastTrack Reading and an S2I Screening to Intervention report for reading. This year we're introducing FastTrack Math with a newly updated S2I Screening to Intervention report for math. We're also adding new math interventions that would be able to then answer the questions of what do I do next after my students have been screened with our math assessments, including FastTrack Math, and providing those to you in our training center. And then also we're adding new FastFlix training videos. For those of you that are familiar with FastFlix as our on-demand learning webinar tools that we have available for those who have subscribed to it. So FastTrack Math and Screening to Intervention report. We'll be talking about this over the next few minutes, but again, like I had mentioned, last year we released FastTrack Reading in a newly updated Reading Screening to Intervention report. This year, we're releasing FastTrack Math and a newly updated Math Screening to Intervention report. In the light of the importance of measuring risk and determining students' needs, we wanted to streamline the teacher and student experiences within FastBridge for both reading and math FastTrack solutions and make those available for the upcoming school year. FastTrack Math provides both teachers and students the correct set of recommended assessments to administer based on the student's age and the time of year. And once all of those recommended assessments are completed, the student data is populated in the Screening to Intervention report, where teachers will be able to determine individual, class, and grade-wide needs, and will also receive references to instruction plans, and recommended next steps, such as recommended progress monitoring measures and interventions to address those students' needs. We updated the teacher screening page. So with the FastTrack Math screening page will look and function the same as the FastTrack Reading screening page. On the screening page, teachers will be able to view students' current screening status. They'll also be able to view their scores highlighted in the benchmark color coding, which is their risk level. And then teachers will also be able to launch the recommended assessments here from the FastTrack Math screening page. Again, having that one button solution really streamlining the process to be able to allow teachers an easy, intuitive way to gather all of the needed students' assessment data that they need for FastTrack Math. So not only did we streamline the solution for teachers, but we also streamlined the solution for the students as well and updated the student login page. So when students log into FastBridge, they'll be able to launch the recommended computer administered assessments by clicking on the FastTrack Math icon that you can see here highlighted in the blue square. Students will also be able to click the More Tests button, which is the blue button below the FastTrack and FastTrack Reading icons, in case they do determine that or choose to only take one of the recommended assessments at a time rather than launching the assessments from the FastTrack Math or FastTrack Reading icons. So as you've heard me refer to the recommended assessments on the past few slides, you're probably asking, what are the recommended assessments? Below is the chart of the FastTrack Math recommended assessments based on the student's grade level. So for our kindergartners and our first graders, students will complete all of the early math subtests that are needed to generate the composite score. These subtests to generate the composite score do differ for the grades as well as the time of year specific to fall, winter, or spring intervals. But the beauty of FastTrack Math is that the correct early math subtests will be launched for students when the teachers click the start button from the FastTrack Math screening page, taking any of the guesswork out of having to know which subtests to give your student, your first graders and your second graders at the specific times a year. Second graders, those students will be completing the CBM Math Automaticity Level 2 General Outcome Measure along with the A-Math assessment. And then third graders through 12th graders will be completing the CBM Math Automaticity Level 3 General Outcome Measure and the A-Math assessment. Again, once all of these assessments are completed, teachers will have a fully populated screening to intervention report, and we'll be covering that more in depth here shortly in the upcoming slides. So another update that I wanted to make sure that everyone on the call is aware of, or that our FastBridge users are aware of for the upcoming school year, is that we'll be making a slight change to the order of the computer administered assessments for both FastTrack Reading and Math. So over the past year, we've received a lot of feedback from our users about FastTrack Reading. They had noticed students becoming more fatigued and less engaged when completing the adaptive assessment before the automaticity assessment. So with this user input, we've made the decision to reorder the automaticity and adaptive assessments for both FastTrack Reading and FastTrack Math. So as you can see, for the older students in these grades, for FastTrack Reading, they will now complete auto reading first and then A reading. And then for FastTrack Math, you can see here they're completing the CBM Math Automaticity assessments and then the A-Math assessments. No changes are being made to the assessments themselves. We're just making the minor change and update to the order of how the assessments will be administered to the students. All of the FastTrack Math recommended assessments are compiled together to provide teachers performance and risk level data for students across the following skills areas. So number, the intuitive understanding of what numbers mean, operations, the understanding of mathematical processes, and then an overall general math, which is an overall knowledge and understanding of numbers and operations. So the combination of the early math subtest for the younger students and our CB and math automaticity and A-math assessments for the older students will give teachers a thorough understanding of where the students' learning gaps or skill gaps are, and this data will be shown on the screening to intervention report here. Like as mentioned, when all of the recommended assessments are completed by the student, the screening to intervention report will populate with all of their screening data and will be highlighting their scores and their risk levels of those scores. But it will also be providing them a new math intervention, screening intervention plans, along with recommendation steps of like, what do I do next now that my students have screened? So we will be providing recommended progress monitoring assessments, as well as recommended interventions for those students. The math plans and the interventions will also be accessible from our training center and are available to be downloaded and printed. One update that I would like to make all of our users aware here too is that we are making a change to our class-wide and grade-wide recommendations and how those are populated in the screening to intervention report for both reading and math. So again, this past year, we had the new screening to intervention report for reading out, and we received a lot of feedback about how the class and grade-wide plans were populating with on-track plans, even though the majority of the class or the grade themselves, those individual students, were not on track. So we were able to iterate through all of these use cases and develop a new logic for how the class and grade-wide plans will be populated. And this new update will be available for both reading and math screening to intervention reports for the upcoming school year. So here's a sample of our new personalized instruction plans for math. These plans are assigned to students based on their screening results on the recommended set of assessments for FastTrack Math. And the plans describe fast recommendations of how to spend instructional time. They also give recommendations of interventions to be implemented in addition to that instruction. What are the students' skills now? Goals and key milestones. Again, recommendations for progress monitoring assessments, as well as any other additional planning that may be needed when implementing this plan of action for a student. We also have class and grade-wide plans recommendations as well that will be available. And these plans are designed to be used for both the whole class and small group instructional supports. So in order for FastTrack Math to be available, all of the recommended assessments that we had discussed previously need to be turned on and available. Master account users and district managers will have the ability to enable FastTrack Math assessments after their school year rollover process and during the new school year setup process. Those users will be prompted during the setup process if they'd like to turn on the recommended assessments in addition to the assessments that they had set up from the previous year, or they can choose to use the same setup that they had last year as well. They will also have the ability to turn on FastTrack Math assessments even after the new year's school year setup, but that's something that we want to be let all of our users know that to be aware of, that in order to have FastTrack, all of the correct assessments at those grade levels need to be set up and available for everybody. So moving on from FastTrack Math and the S2I report for math, we'll be moving into the new math interventions that we're adding. So we're adding new math interventions that will be available from the Training and Resources Center. These interventions are in the areas of algebra, data analysis, statistics and probability, measurement, rational numbers, and geometry. The downloadable materials are located in the Training and Resources section. These interventions are These interventions were developed to help you answer the question typically asked, after educators finish screening is what do I do next? What do I do to help my students and their needs? So the additional math interventions here are covering all of the Common Core standards for mathematics, and keep an eye out for more that will be coming and are currently being developed throughout next year. Another note that we'd like to let everybody know about with these interventions is that they were developed by a team led by Dr. Ted Christ at the University of Minnesota. These interventions are research referenced and built from the available evidence for most effective math instruction practices. They're aligned with the FastBridge assessments and the Common Core State Standards for mathematics. And again, these interventions were designed to be used for both whole class in Tier 1 and small group Tier 2 instructional supports. And next, we'll be adding new content to our FastFlix training. So those of you that are aware, FastFlix is our on-demand learning subscription service. It is a library of on-demand courses that is available 24/7, designed with teams in mind. FastFlix are interactive videos designed for small groups of educators to learn about the FastBridge assessments and related resources. For the upcoming school year, we'll be adding a couple of new courses to FastFlix that will be informing educators more about our FastBridge reading and math interventions. And a couple of last updates that I'd like to let everyone know about is we do have, we added national norms for our CBM Math Automaticity Level 3 General Outcome Measure for grades 4 through 6. And something else that we're really excited about that will be coming and available in the fall of 2020 is a new leadership report for our district and school leaders. We'll be giving them the ability to quickly view and compare data across their district by schools and grades. They will also be able to view longitudinal data to show change across multiple years. And so this report that we'll be building and be making available hopefully shortly right after fall screening is going to be really helping district leaders or school leaders answer some of the key questions like, what percentage of students are above or below benchmark for schools or grades across the district? What percentage of students have screened in schools and or the grades? What percentage of my students are in each normative category by school and grade? So being able to give our leaders the ability to answer these types of questions and provide all the necessary data to really help them make those system level decisions for resource allocation, really see is the impact of their core curriculum working or not, how is their MTSS implementation, where do they maybe need to add more professional development, and so on. So that's something that we're looking forward to being able to build for our district and school leaders and provide to them this fall. And that is all I had for our updates. So now I'll kind of open the lines or view the chat if there was any questions that had come in.
Hey, Derek, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. We actually had quite a few questions come in, which is really great, ranging from a wide array of topics. And I was able to also pick Dr. Rachel Brown's brain a little bit here on the side for some of these questions as well, Derek, because I think some of them might have been better directed towards her. And the first two in particular, I did ask for Rachel's input, but Derek, you can of course weigh in as well. And they both were in relation to using SAEBRS and MySAEBRS. The first question came in about whether or not we recommend using SAEBRS and MySAEBRS this spring. We have questions about people who currently do use SAEBRS and did for winter screening, and then those who have never used it before. And Dr. Brown did say that doing SAEBRS or MySAEBRS this spring wouldn't really benefit you too much unless the teacher has been able to really see and observe the students regularly. Even for our fall screening, we advise that you wait about 6 weeks before conducting these screeners, because you do need time to let student behavior adjust to their new setting. And so with the times being what they are, it would be, I think, really difficult for comparisons to be done. And so Dr. Brown said, if you were to try to attempt it, just to use the comparisons with a lot of caution. And then the second question related to SAEBRS was whether or not there are plans to come out with different grade level norms for my SAEBRS. And again, I consulted Dr. Brown on this one, and she let me know that we do not plan to issue norms for SAEBRS. And the reason is that behavior expectations vary too much across the states and districts to have any sort of uniform norms to that. Is there anything that you wanted to add to those particular questions, Derek? Should we move on?
No, I think that's a great summary to both of those questions. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Awesome. And then Derek, there were just a lot of general questions about when in particular our target date is for, we say, our back to school release. So do you want to speak to when in July our customers can expect to see the first half of your presentation live in product?
Yep, absolutely. So we are targeting a July, what would that be? July 9th release. So we are going to make these summer updates available to our users that following Monday. So July 9th would be a Thursday. That following Monday would be the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. So the 13th, our users would be able to be expected to see these new updates.
And then Derek, I know, great. And I know you had mentioned that the leadership report in particular would not be for the summer. When do you anticipate having that live in product?
Correct. Yes, the current the leadership report is currently being developed, and we are targeting having that available shortly after our fall screening. So right now we're just saying fall 2020, but hopefully we can make that available as soon as or shortly after fall screening is completed.
Okay, great. And then we had a wide array of questions as it related to CBM math. So I'm going to do my best to try to consolidate here, but bear with me. The first question was, are there plans to come out with higher levels above third grade of the CBM math automaticity GOM screener, or at least norms for the L3 GOM at the higher grade levels?
Yes, so we, for the norms question, we did address that. That was my last update there. We are updating and adding national norms for the CBM Math Automaticity Assessment for grades 4 through 6. And we are currently in developing content for the CBM Math Automaticity Assessment that will expand kind of those pre-algebra and further on learning gaps of that assessment. So we are developing content to expand the level 3 GOM assessment.
Okay, great. There were a few questions that came in about the rationale for having higher grade levels take the third grade CBM math automaticity as it related to FastTrack Math. Could you explain a little bit further whether or not that changed, or what the rationale is that goes into that?
Yeah, sure. So the rationale is that the level 3 general outcome measure does look at mathematical processes and operations for those students at those grade levels. And if students above those grade levels are struggling with those types of things, we would want them to be able to come back and learn those and identify those students and intervene with them early to get them back on track.
Okay. Kind of as a follow-up to your last question, will the new CBM Math Auto Assessment for grades 4 to 6 be available this fall?
So the CBM Math Automaticity Level 3 GOM will still be the recommended assessment for those grades. We'll be adding national norms for those grades off of that general outcome measure.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. This last one in relation to math again is, when do you recommend using MathCap? This customer said we used it last year, but we're told resources are only for K through 6.
That is a good question, and we might have to defer to Dr. Brown a little bit more on that one of when we recommend using that specific assessment.
Okay, I am going to see if I can get an answer from her now, and in the meantime, why don't I move on to a few other questions and we'll circle back.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. One other question is, would you still recommend second graders take a math?
Yes, second graders will be taking, we recommend a math would be part of our second grade is FastTrack Math. So they would be taking CBM Math Automaticity, the level 2 general outcome measure, as well as a math. That is part of the recommended assessments of FastTrack Math. Yes.
Okay, great. Another question around when FastTrack Math will be available, and I know you covered that, so it'd be July 13th. Customers should expect to see that available in product.
Correct, yes. Both FastTrack Math and the new screening to intervention report for math will be available on those same summer release dates.
Excellent. So we are switching gears a little bit here. A question relating to the leadership report. The question is, will we be able to view the leadership report by building only? As an instructional coach, I only want to see the building I am in and not the district information.
Sure. So it'll depend on your role within FastBridge. So think of how the current leaders, or I shouldn't say leaders, the reports available to our leaders work today, the group screening, the group growth, and the group the impact report work. So if you are a school manager and you are only have access to one school building, the leadership will only show that one school building as well as the school manager. If you're set up as a district manager and you have access to all the schools within the district, you'll then see all of the schools within the district on the leadership report as well.
Great. Looks like we have a response from Dr. Brown on the earlier question related to math cap for grades K through 6. And so I could feel her virtually sign like you did around the trickiness of this question. And indeed, she said it is a tricky one. Dr. Brown said it works best as an additional optional screening tool. It has content from K-8, but she suggests using it as needed for students in grades 5-8 if more data are needed to plan instruction after using FastTrack Math. So I hope that answers the question. Let's see, we got a ton more, so I'm doing my best to make my way through these all. Here's another one. Derek, will there be sample intervention resources available before that July 9th, July 13th date? In particular, this relates to a budget question and when purchases need to be made before that time.
So what's great about is the interventions that we'll be adding. There are already math interventions available within FastBridge today, but the new ones that we'll be adding with our summer release will be free of charge to everyone. So as long as you have a FastBridge subscription and are using FastBridge today, those interventions will be made available free of charge to you and in the Training and Resources Center.
Excellent. Okay, let's see. There is another question around math progress monitoring measures. And Derek, I can also go to Rachel on this one if she's the better person to ask. But which math progress monitoring measures do we recommend for each grade level?
So with FastTrack Math, the progress monitoring measures will change depending on the grade level, and we give those recommendations of which ones to use in the S2I report when the students complete the recommended set of assessments. So there are a number of measures that we would recommend to use for progress monitoring, and they will be available within the math instruction plans as well as within the S2I report. When all those recommended assessments are populated, we will populate what those recommended assessments and recommended interventions are for those individual students' needs.
Great. Let's see. This is a really helpful comment from one of our customers, so I'm just going to read it in case it helps others. Let's see. I just had it. She says, I find it useful to look at the content of the CAP CIP by level. You want to select the level that most closely matches with the instruction provided at that grade level. So in case that is helpful to others, I wanted to share that. And then one more question as it relates to leadership report. Will we be able to access reading and math through the leadership report?
Yep. Yes, the leadership report will be able to be run for any assessments that the district or the school has set up for them and has data for.
Okay, great. And then can you speak a little bit more to FastFlex, Derek? In particular, question around if it's an additional like add-on subscription and then what the cost is for that?
Yes, so FastFlex is a subscription service that we had released last year. It was priced between, I believe it was $700 to $3,000 for a subscription, depending on the district size. But we are actually.
Oh, sorry, that is correct. And I just put FastFlex pricing into the handouts for anyone who's interested. That breaks it down by district. Sorry to cut you off, Derek.
Yep, no problem. But I did want to also let users know that our current users today is we are providing FastFlex right now during these pandemic and these stressful times. We are providing that free to all of our current subscribers, knowing that, again, we got a lot of feedback from our during our discussions with district leaders that virtual training and professional development is a high need right now, and having FastFlex right there for its exact purpose is that virtual webinar training service. We are providing that to all of our current subscribers for free.
Excellent, thank you. There was a question that came in over about the rollover dates, and Derek, I actually have these dates handy if you want me just to tackle this one.
Sure, yep.
So we actually are asking for all districts to choose which rollover date they prefer. The primary rollover date, which will be the defaulted one unless selected otherwise, will be July 17th through the 18th. And then the alternate rollover date is August 21st through the 23rd. So if no form is submitted and this form is being sent out, we sent it out in last month's community newsletter, but we will continue to send this communication out to everyone. So if no form is submitted, then the districts will be rolled over on the primary date of July 18th. Is there anything you want to add to that, Derek?
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to tackle one last question here, and I'm sorry if I did miss anyone's. I'm trying my best to keep up with all of the questions, and thank you to everyone for your engagement and for being so willing to bear with us as we read through all of these. I did ask Rachel about if there's a quantile score for math included in the new release, and Dr. Brown said that not at this time, and the reason is that we do not have data that would allow for that yet. Dr. Belinsky, who's on our research and development team, he is aware of the request, and we will examine it if and when we can offer this. And so we will definitely let you guys know what decision we make on that. So Derek, at this point, let me just double check our questions one last time to make sure I'm not missing anything urgent. I'm wondering if you can move on with your deck actually to just do a review of what we have around distance learning, because I know that there was actually some questions around, what happens if we go back to school and it's not in fact, brick and mortar students in their seats. So in particular, there was a question about whether or not we have a discussion around administering FastBridge via virtual setting. And the answer is definitely as needed. So we are recommending that schools plan for some students and teachers requiring this due to their own health needs. So not all students will be able to return even if schools are allowed to be open, for example. So we have already issued a bunch of guidance related to distance-based administration, and we will continue to support this and evolve our communication and our guidance as well. But if you haven't yet visited the knowledge base, we have, I think we're up to 14 new articles since the end of March here, really outlining our guidance for both progress monitoring and universal screening. There is a COVID specific section within the knowledge base where you can get that information. And in addition to that, we also have what Derek is showing on the screen here, which is our COVID-19 community resources page. And this page is shared among all the products within the Illuminate portfolio. So if you are just the user of FastBridge, what you find on this page can also be found in the knowledge base. So just know that there is an overlap of content there. The benefit of also going to this landing page is that you will then find additional upcoming webinars, which actually, Derek, if you can move to the next screen. we have a bunch of upcoming webinars as well. And so there are some that are, again, really specific to products. So we have one on FastTrack reading and the S2I report for reading next week. FastBridge learning leader Lisa Marcourt will be leading that, as well as two FastBridge users, Monica Blank and Renee Straub. They will be talking about their experience having used it throughout this past year and give you some helpful tips and tricks for how it's improved their experience using FastBridge. In addition to that really like nitty-gritty product-based webinar, we also have part 2 of our Preventing COVID Slide webinar. That is May 27th at 3 p.m. For those of you that did attend the last one or attempted to attend, we hit capacity for the first time ever in our history, which is, it's the sort of thing where we're so excited that many people were interested, and we also were really devastated that we were not able to allow everyone into live recording. And I mentioned that just to say that please don't let that deter you from coming to part 2. We have corrected the issue. We will definitely have capacity for everyone who has signed up, and let us know if you didn't receive your recording of that if you signed up, because we did send that out the next day. And then lastly, we have a webinar that is called Thinking Forward with Equity-Based MTSS, supporting all students in a changing world, and that's being led by Dawn Miller. For those of you who are familiar with her, she's really an expert in this arena. So we have a lot of really great content to help our best to support you during this time, and so that's where that COVID resources page comes in handy. I think maybe there's one more page here, Derek. Oh, this is just speaking to part 2 of our series. So you can move ahead to the next one. So that was a lot of information. We thank you all so much for attending. Derek, I don't know if you have any last words that you want to say to wrap up here, but definitely know that we will be sending out a recording of this webinar as well as the PDF slide deck, and I'll attach the FastFlix pricing as well. So if you're interested in that, you have that as well. Anything else, Derek, you'd like to add?
No, I just want to thank everyone for their time that they spent with us today in this webinar. I hope it was informative and useful, and I hope you're all excited as we are to get these new updates out to you to be used for the upcoming school year. And just stay safe, everyone, and stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.